Ready?
Yep.
Edition number 2, Next Generation Leadership. Bruce Wirt, Mayka, Rosales, Peterson. It's so funny, Mayka, because when I open up, this is the second time we've done this, and I want to say the voice of choice, Bruce Wirt, because that was my wrestling radio handle for so many years, and I still have my wrestling podcast. So it's hard for me to just say my name when I'm doing this crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, because of your other podcast, right? People who don't know, you are also on, what is it called? Voice of Choice?
VOC Nation.
VOC Nation.
Yeah. Started that many moons ago. I was doing Philadelphia radio, and I decided I want to do this thing on my own, and started the podcasting journey. And that was before anybody else really did podcasts. I mean, there were podcasts around, but they weren't like they are today. And we were doing 100,000 plus downloads
oh my goodness.
every episode. And it's one of those things. There's so many things in my life where I was wrong place at the wrong time. Well, in life, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And if I had continued down that path, I'd probably have a lot more money and no mortgage and all that stuff. But whatever.
Right. It's okay. Here. Everything happens for a reason, It was meant to be the way that it is. And so don't question it.
No, and I'm exactly where I need to be, because this role at Telesystem helps me help many people, not just the people that actually work in my organization, meaning my department, but I think that this role and being part of the whole channel community allows me to use my LinkedIn presence and just help as many people as I can grow and develop into the most that they can, whatever their potential allows.
I know you have a gift with that, because you've done that with me, and there's so many other women that you've done that with and you've helped, and that is really, I think, part of your purpose, right?
Yeah, definitely part of my purpose. And women, men, everything in between. You say purpose, and our conversation today, and we have a great guest, Nancy Ridge from Ridge Innovative. We're talking about the 4 P's. And I wrote an article a couple of years ago. It's probably laying around somewhere. It's in one of the, I think Channel Vision magazine published it, but the 4 P's. And to me, foundational, if you think about a pyramid and you think about the bottom layer, it's purpose. And I think the success journey for anybody, if you're kind of find yourself, if you're out there and you've had 5 jobs in the last 5 years or more than that, maybe a little bit less, and you're saying this isn't really what I want for my life, but it's kind of where I am, I think you have to look back and understand your purpose. And maybe it's not, there's a lot of talented people, Mayka, that just haven't
found their thing, right? And it takes time. It really does. It takes time. And I'm sorry if you hear my dog here, the working from home situation. You hear the dogs and the kids and everyone crying. But purpose and passion and all these the 4 P's that we have here are so essential to leadership and to life. And I'm so excited for what Nancy Ridge is going to say. She's such a pioneer and a leader. It's gonna be great.
And she's somebody that she knows her purpose, and she's very passionate. And I think, and if you're watching the video, you get to see Mayka try to react to all the things in her environment. I think that's part of what we try to give you here. We're available.
I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry, because that is the authenticity that we provide.
The authenticity. You see the dog, I'm over here like snapping my fingers, telling it to be quiet.
Yes. Next Generation Leadership, available on your favorite podcast app, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you like to get your podcast. Subscribe, download the audio, rate and review us on iTunes, because that's how we help to grow. But also, this is presented with limited commercial interruption, exclusively by our friends at Telesystem. Which,
we love Telesystem.
We love Telesystem. And no hiding it. I'm a Telesystem executive. Mike is a Telesystem employee. But this is not a Telesystem commercial. So if you stumbled on this and you think we're just going to talk about Telesystem for an hour, we're not.
It's going to be a lot of substance, a lot of good stuff. You're going to love it. It's going to be good. Tune in. Keep tuning in.
Great guest list coming up too. We'll talk about that after we get through with Nancy, we'll talk about what's coming up next. But again, think about the pyramid as we're talking to Nancy. You got purpose. You got to find that first. Once you have your purpose, you got to have passion for what you do. Sometimes they don't line up perfectly. Like my passion is doing this. I love speaking.
Yeah.
I wanted to do sports radio. I was blessed to have the opportunity to do that. And I got into telecom by accident because of that sports radio journey. And we talked about that some on the first show that we did together. But purpose, having passion, and then perseverance. You got to keep going. When you think that you hit a wall, you got to run through it. And you cannot be afraid of failure. John Maxwell, who I love, says fail forward, learn from your mistakes and go forward. And then last but not least is Micropositivity. And you are the example, the living body of a positive person.
No, I mean, positivity is everything of who I am. It's one of my core values to always, just exude goodness, and just be a good person to everyone and anyone that you meet. And I feel like that is part of my authentic DNA. So positivity for me is a big one.
Part of building a good culture for all of you leaders and aspiring leaders out there is, I feel like when I hire people, I want to hire for what you'll do for me tomorrow, not necessarily what you did yesterday. So you could have a great resume, you could have done a lot of things, but if I get the sense, even if my leaders interview you and they like you, when you get to me, if I don't get the sense that you're a positive person and you're going to positively impact my organization tomorrow, then I don't want you. I want positive people. And
you have to.
You can't be positive unless you find your purpose and you have passion, right?
Yes, they all go together.
And you're positive, your purpose, and you're passionate.
And I'm passionate.
And you persevere.
And I persevere. It's a perfect combination.
All right, so subscribe on wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on YouTube. Go to the Telesystem YouTube channel. When I say Telesystem, there's no S.
There's no S.
No S.
No S.
There's an S in system, but no S at the end of Telesystem. Find us. You get all the great Telesystem commercials there as well. You'll know all too much about Telesystem by the time that you're done watching this show and following us for as long as you have. So coming up next is world-renowned leader and very fierce advocate for empowerment across. Go ahead.
Powerhouse.
Yes.
Powerhouse. Everyone in our space, if you don't know her, I don't know where you've been, but she's a powerhouse, award-winning tech queen, executive. I can go on and on and on. I love Nancy to death. She's amazing. I can't wait to speak to her.
I say that, and I'm the executive of the front office here at Telesystem. I think that our buyers comes in all shapes, sizes, genders, they're everybody. And in order to have an effective front office, you have to hire those people. And Nancy has advocated for that for as long as I've known her and as long as she's been in the industry. We'll take you down her journey next, coming up on Next Generation Leadership.
See you there.
In a world where businesses are striving to adapt, connect, and evolve, we're here to bring you more. More freedom to work how and where you want while keeping employees connected, productive, and engaged. More flexibility to customize solutions to tailor a simple, more agile network. And more security for an evolving cyber landscape with around-the-clock access to hands-on technical support. It's time to explore more.
Back here on Next Generation Leadership, Bruce Wirt, Mayka, Rosales, Peterson. And Mayka, we have an awesome guest with us today.
We have a fantastic guest, a friend. She is a tech queen. She's an award-winning executive, founder of Rich Innovative. She's a former VP of sales for a wholesale carrier. She's just everything. I love her to death. And I'm so excited that she's here to have this very important and powerful conversation that's going to make people just feel better. And welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. I hope so. Thank you for that. And Bruce, it's awesome to be with you again, too. Two of my favorite people.
I can't believe we've known each other for almost 10 years now. And I met you. I was an executive at another company. And by the way, this podcast is brought to you with limited commercial interruption, presented by Telesystem. But I was an executive for another company, and you and I connected because I was doing a lot of work to develop women. And
Mhm.
I've been a fierce advocate, I think, of
Yes.
fighting for equal pay and fighting
Yeah, you
for opportunity. And that's how you and I met. So why don't you tell us about your background, and then tell us about this awesome organization that you started that's now called the Alliance of Channel Women. You helped to start, and the growth and development of that company over the years.
Absolutely. And again, I'm so stoked to be here with the two of you. And, just on a little personal note, Bruce, I was really impressed when we first got to know each other, because you did have a roster of really amazingly bright young women that
Thank
were
you.
working for you. And so it was clear that you weren't just giving it lip service. You actually were giving bright young women an opportunity to make their name in the industry and to grow, and you were creating that environment. And I remember you coming to my office and shutting the door and saying, "Hey, I need some guidance. We're about to go to Vegas. I'm taking all these gorgeous young women to Vegas. What are your thoughts?" And so we had a really good conversation, but that stood out to me because it really demonstrated how much you cared about your staff and how important it was for you to do the right thing.
Sure.
And if there were just more guys like you, we would just be so much further along in this gender equality situation. So thank you.
So many people go the other way. It's I have all of these gorgeous young ladies, your words, not mine, that I'm taking to Vegas. How can I flaunt that? And I've always been careful that I'm more about the brains and the whole package than that. And I think that does such a disservice to talented women. And unfortunately, there was a lot of that. Doesn't happen as much today, but that was a big part of the industry going back to when the channel first came into.
You bet, absolutely. And just to touch back on the background question, I started working at Honeywell when I was just fresh out of school, and I was a youngster at that point. I think I started there when I was 17 or 18 years old, because I graduated early.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I was this really young thing working in the mainframe computer division. So we were
What's that
selling
word?
to the big three automotive companies in Detroit, Michigan. And so it was, paneled boardrooms and luxury cars, and it was a boys club, brandy in
Very
the glass and the whole nine
intimidating,
yards.
huh?
Yes, and this was in the late 70s, so things were a lot different back then.
Sure.
And I went on in subsequent years, oftentimes being the only woman in the room. And I learned, I learned some survival skills, but, I also learned how to have my voice be heard on a more serious level. And, that took a lot of work, and it took support. There were men along the way who mentored and supported me, and certainly women too, because there was always those one or two token female leaders that I got to latch onto as role models. And, I give them a lot of credit because, they really shaped who I have become as a professional over the years.
And that's awesome. I think, in our space, we need more women like that because there's not a lot of us, right? So when we have pioneers like you, mentor the younger generation to, with the things that you've learned, it helps. You're putting that forward, and then we get to put that forward. So it's like a trickle down effect. So I want to thank you for that, Nancy. Keep being that beacon of light.
Totally my pleasure. I mean, nothing gives me more pleasure than, to see anyone really, but especially young women find their potential, find their voice, and really be able to make that contribution, that's their heart's desire. We're going to talk about the 4 Ps today. So, starting with purpose, I believe everyone has the right, and certainly, rights are one thing, but it is a privilege to pursue that purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so providing that environment for people to find it, I think is a key element that especially leaders need to be constantly aware of.
And we talked about this in the first segment before we brought you on, Nancy, but purpose and passion, I think, are a lot of times together, they can be a very powerful package, but they can also be mutually exclusive too. I mean, I think it's very important if you want to find success, you have to find your purpose. You have to find your purpose in life, and that guides everything else. It's the foundational layer of the pyramid. Passion and what you have passion for might be a little bit different than purpose. So I have passion for doing speaking events, and I really wanted to go into sports radio. That's how I got into this crazy business. I got a job with Comcast because I thought I could get into the broadcasting division if I made a few sales. And here I am.
Another person who didn't set out to be in telecom and IT that wound up here. Wait.
Yeah. Oh
We're all
my
here by
goodness.
accident. But that passion leads into my purpose, which is really leadership and development. I don't care about, I love being successful, but it's more rewarding for me to see somebody like Mayka that I saw came to me, didn't have a whole lot of telecom experience, but said, here's where I want to go. And my purpose is to get you there and make you into the best that I can, get the most out of that talent. And I think that's where purpose and passion have a mix, and that leads to success. But sometimes it's not always that way. And I think a lot of people get lost along the way because they see what somebody else is doing, and that's what they want to do. So let's start there, Nancy. You were part of the founding of what used to be Women in the Channel, now the Alliance of Channel Women. What was the genesis of starting that group, and how does that tie into people's development and getting the most out of women in this industry?
Well, really, where the genesis began was, of course, as usual, things start from a place of discontent, right? And, you know, oftentimes there has to be a problem or a conflict of some sort, you know, for things to be created. You know, it's a very common scenario. And I had a couple of places where I was discontented at the time. One of them was the fact that I was given the advantage and given the opportunity, shall we say, to participate on a number of advisory boards, which I've gotten to participate with Telesystem too. Thank you very much. Over the years. And as I was in those meetings, you know, I would be the only woman at the table. There might be one or two others, but generally they weren't in the leadership or sales generating roles. And most of the time it was just me. And that was troubling, you know, to see, number one. And then the second thing was in the job that I had at the time, you know, I was feeling discontented because frankly, I wasn't getting what I wanted. I wanted more money. I wanted more revenue to grow the business. You know, and I just wasn't receiving that. I didn't feel like I was getting the support for the vision that I had for the company. And in the past, when I had experienced those feelings, oftentimes I had looked to go elsewhere. And this time I wanted to do it different. You know, I think being aware of our personal patterns is something that's really important. And my mentor helped me with that, you know, to see, don't keep repeating the same patterns.
That's so good.
Right. And so I wanted to be persistent. I wanted to stick it out.
Persevere.
And so it was like, okay, so there's got to be something else, right? So right alongside, you know, those feelings and also being the only woman at the table, you know, I sat down with another female leader named Jan Sorrow, and Jan was one of the original founders of Fusion.
Okay.
She was on their original, yeah. So anyways, Jan and I were having dinner, and it was the night before Channel Partners was going to start. And we were having all these conversations, and I was asking her, you know, I said, why do you think we're not seeing more women in leadership roles? And by the way, have you noticed that there aren't that many younger women that are coming into the channel? Like we're all kind of getting up there in age, right? And and so we were having this whole discussion, and I was like, I want to do something about that. And so she was an EVP at her company. She said, I'll tell you what, she goes, when we go to Vegas, I'll get a suite and let's bring some of the women together, and we can really start talking about this issue and how we can change it. And I said, that's a great idea. So we walked over to the hotel to meet up with our women friends. There were a couple ladies there we were meeting up with. Karen Fields was one of them.
One of my favorite.
Yeah. And so we walked over there and sat down, and I said, and by the way, we were the only women. The bar was full. It was pre-show night. It was a packed venue, and it was just us in the corner. And so we took the conversation right there. I said, let's have it. And everyone was enthusiastic. And at that moment, Karen and I, who were technically competitors, started talking about how we could collaborate instead.
Sure.
That's awesome.
And I was like, who do you have in your portfolio? Here's who I have. And so there was trust.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big word right now too, that I think comes up.
Right.
So we trusted each other enough to have that conversation.
Did you ever think back then that the Alliance of Channel Women would be as big as it is right now? Just the
hell yeah. Hell yeah. Because my vision was always big.
Yeah.
And what happened though, what was interesting is we came back and we all agreed we were going to do the suite in Vegas, right? Then when we came back, I went to my coach, which I'm always advocating to people, get a coach, get a mentor, find those role models. Right. And she's a woman. And I was telling her about this, and she said, honey, you don't need a suite, you need a ballroom. So I got a ballroom and we filled it.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's funny because I'm going to tie this into to my pro wrestling ties. So I think a lot of people, I've made so many relationships in this industry because of my couple years in radio and spending a lot of time in wrestling, and people love the stories. But it's almost how Vince McMahon, who is the head of the WWE, he started out this concept of WrestleMania. And WrestleMania 3 was when they really took that company from a small regional company based in New York national, and they did it by putting Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant in the Pontiac Silverdome. And, WrestleMania was smaller venues, Madison Square Garden, 20,000 people. And Vince said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to fill up the Pontiac Silverdome. And it's that big, hairy, audacious goal, your BHAG. And he did it. And I think that's very similar, right? In my small wrestling brain, it's very similar to what you did, because instead of just getting a small room to network in, you went and you did it big, and you chased it until you got it.
Yes. Yep. And I went right to the the editor, at Informa. It was Phone Plus at the time, and asked for the top sponsorship. And I went to all the leaders that I knew in the channel and asked them for money. And, and of course it was all men.
Yeah.
And they were asking me questions like, return on investment and, what's the goal? And I said, I can't promise you that. I can't give you a tangible number right now, but I can tell you it's going to transform your business, because you're going to suddenly tap into a power that you're not utilizing to the best of its capabilities right now.
But and I'm sorry, Mayka, just real quick. And it's working towards the power of good. And I feel, I'm blessed to be at Telesystem. Been at Telesystem for 5 years in the senior leading executive role for the last 2. And I've had other positions in other companies over the years where this wasn't as easy of a sell. And, we committed to Diamond. I think that's the highest level sponsorship with ACW this year. And it was very easy for me. It wasn't about ROI. It wasn't about what can we get, what exposure are we getting. It was more about, and Micah was part of these discussions. So, she's a witness in the room. It was how many of our women can we get into the program because we're doing this, because I feel so strongly that they will develop from it. It's not just about can they network, can they make sales from it. It's development and getting them to the next part of their career. And I fundamentally, as a leader, I think you have to understand that that person's next step might not be with you. So I want to grow you to the point where I can either take you to the next step with me or your next steps beyond me. And I think not every organization thinks like that or allows leaders to think like that. And I think that is one of the blessings of working for Telesystem, is that strong culture of growth and wanting to better everybody.
Yeah. Well, you're really onto something that is key. And what I love, Bruce, is that this is inherent in you. This is something that you have brought to the table. But I can tell you there are studies out that are fresh right now that support what you're talking about. In particular, I'll reference one that just was released by Forbes in conjunction with Salesforce. And the data is literally from the past summer, where they went out to a sampling of enterprise executives. And it was a pretty substantial sampling. And what they discovered was that employee experience is the pathway to better customer experience, which is the pathway to revenue.
Amen.
And it starts with a better employee experience.
Yeah,
and as we now look around, and the millennials are, at the leadership table, right? They're no longer the young up and comers. Those are the Gen Xers now, right? We have learned from those millennials. First of all, I've always been a stand for them because I have them in my home. I have one in my home, and she's amazing. And all of her friends are too, and they're super hardworking people. But they are smart about how they work, and they don't abide by the same rules that some of the older generation did, the previous generations, where they're just looking to get the result. Like, are you going to force them to be 9 to 5? Are you going to force them to conform? And in fact, a lot of them are responding really well to this remote working situation because they wanted that mobility to begin with. So, employee experience, now you're looking to improve that, and you primarily your up and coming leaders are of that generation. So you have to find ways to have them feel like they're a part of, and that's when they're going to give you their heart, which means your customer is going to have the experience and you get the revenue. And by building up people, looking at how can you contribute to them, that's the key.
Herb Kelleher, Southwest Airlines.
There you go.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, you're right.
So we talked a little bit about passion and purpose. I want to go into perseverance a little bit. So, I feel like our generation, I'm a millennial, of course, we've gotten the short end of stick for a lot of things. Me, I'm a first generation American, so I had to fight for everything. My dad recently just passed. And one thing that he taught me was, when you fall, get up, right? Besides all the obstacles. So what do you think perseverance means to you? And, is that something that is learned, or is that something that you gain in life? That's a very heavy question. I'm sorry.
I think it's a choice. To me, it's a choice.
Yeah. I think, my parents taught me never give up. Sounds silly, but they also forced me to never give up. We grew up very poor. We didn't have, most of my clothes were hand-me-downs. It was a tough experience.
Grew up in Philly.
And a lot of my friends, didn't make it, either in life, literally or figuratively. And I think, that foundational element, like you said, from your dad, I give a lot of credit because, I mean, my parents wouldn't accept a C, and it was, what do we have to do to turn that into a B, to turn that into an A?
Right.
And I think I've only reached the position that I'm blessed to have because of that that never give up attitude. And my wife makes fun of me because I'll look at something. I'm terrible at putting together furniture, and we have 2 small children, so I've had some cribs and some changing tables, and I'll put it together. It'll be upside down or backwards. And, she's like, just call somebody and get them to do it. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to give up on this thing. And, I get there, but it's just, I think it's part of your upbringing, but I also think you can do it yourself. Like anybody listening, they don't have to accept what's already conditioned in them. They can decide today. You can make a decision today that you are not going to give up until you reach your goal. And I think you have to find your purpose. I mean, you might be on the wrong course. Maybe you're in telecom and telecom's not where you're destined to be, but find your purpose and then don't give up. That's a personal choice. You can make it. You agree with that, Nancy?
Absolutely. First of all, Mayka, you are an incredibly beautiful embodiment of your dad's principles.
Oh, thank you so much. I try to live that because I know, my family struggled. They were immigrants. They came here with nothing. And I had to pay for school. I had to do everything on my own. Nothing was given to me. So perseverance for me is one of my core values. Is who I am. I don't let anything or my situation or circumstances define who I am. I make my way. So that's why I always struggle with, is that something that is taught to you as a kid, or is that something that you learn over time? And I wanted to hear from you, Nancy, and what you thought about that.
Well, Bruce, your question, yes, I believe it. And as I said, I believe it's a choice. That being said, I also feel like it is helpful to have those role models, Mayka, because, you were fortunate to have those role models, as were you, Bruce, to have parents who encouraged you along those lines and they demonstrated it. I know that there are others who don't have those advantages, and they have to look even further, outside of their family unit to find those examples. And for me, that's an opportunity to be that example to anyone and everyone, as regardless of whether it's my kid or somebody else's kid. We do have that choice. And, even talking about, there's little words, like I always get hung up on little words because I think languaging is really important. And, when you said I had to, it's like, you got to. You made a choice. You didn't have to. There's no one forcing you to do those things that you did. At the end of the day, you made those choices, and it's a difference between I have to and I get to.
Someone receive that, please. Ooh, that was good.
A very good point. And sometimes choices come with consequences, and sometimes you have to dig yourself out of the consequences, and you have to inject reality. You made a choice, something bad happened. And I think self-reflection we're such a busy world, there's things coming at us, phone, there's monitors all over the place. There's my watch is telling me I have to be somewhere. And there's so much coming at us, but I think it's very important. I say to my wife, at the end of every night, I sit there in bed and I reflect on the day, and she makes fun of me because even if we're arguing or whatever, around 10:30 at night, she says I get very emotional is a bad word, but I get very thankful. And no matter what's happening, I always try to end with that thankful retrospect. And I do it because I process everything that happened during the day, and I think about what I could have done better. And there are things that I live with consequences, but you have to look at how you can change tomorrow, because I tell my employees, and I've told them forever and a day, you can't change the past, and whatever happened, happened, but we can change the future, and I'll help you change the future. And that kind of leads me into positivity, but I don't want to get there yet. But I think that with everything coming at you, you have to stop and pause and think and process and learn from it. John Maxwell principle.
Yep, it's awesome.
That's a great point.
Those are good practices. And, it's interesting because maybe we need to write a new book. There was the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but that's one of my habits too, where I do a little inventory. I do it with a notebook. I do little bullet points before I go to sleep.
Sure.
And I always make sure that I hit some of the positive things, going into your positivity, as well as the things that maybe left me with a little bit of a question mark or an icky feeling. There's also the good stuff, because oftentimes folks who are high achievers, we tend to be hard on ourselves, really hard on ourselves, and we miss the good stuff. But, if I don't look at those things, how am I going to repeat them? It's important to remember, what I've done well, so I can do that again.
That's so good. So speaking of positivity, since we're already here, I feel, you and I spoke about this before, people love positive people. They're drawn to those people. And so what do you say about leadership? Do you think that is a prime necessity in a leader to be positive? Well, not a lot of leaders are positive. So does that bring to their success?
Well, I don't know how, you can necessarily lead effectively for any length of time without some form of positivity. And as I'm saying that, I know that there are people out there that have taken another direction, but I don't know. For me, I think it's a huge element to leadership, because it kind of goes back to that vision and purpose. So this is very much a circular, type of situation. It's not linear, like they all go together. And, if I'm fulfilling my purpose, then I'm positive. It's like an outcome.
It all goes together.
Yeah, I guess that's the word I'm looking for. It's kind of an outcome.
Yeah.
And when we talk about passion, which we touched on passion, but really, when I think about passion, passion is really just intense enthusiasm, right? And it brings about commitment and ultimately, I think, team success. And I don't think that's something you can conjure.
Yeah.
So unless you have that positivity, I don't know how the passion is going to be authentic.
It all works together. It's and that's why when I draw it, it's a pyramid, because everything builds on the next. And positivity can't be achieved unless you have some form of purpose and passion, right? And perseverance is kind of the next step up. But I think you can fake positivity if you haven't found your purpose, or maybe there's a short burst of positivity. But if you think about somebody, I think about people that go from place to place to place to place, and they never really hang on for more than a year or two. And some of them I look at and I say, you're ultra talented. What's happening? And it's really, if you reflect, and it's not always my job to change it for them. They have to change themselves. And when you interview, you're not interviewing to give somebody life coaching, but you look at some people that are very talented and they could do a lot, but they're probably in the wrong space. And sometimes I think leaders will hire somebody that is maybe they know it's a short-term success, but it's almost like a selfish thing, because they know there will be a short burst of success and then they'll move on. Talk about that. Have you ever been with somebody, either managed them or around them, where you know that they have they're positive, but there's an end in sight. You know, it's not, they're not quite where they need to be, and that won't last forever. And I'm probably not articulating it the way that I want to.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's almost like short bursts of success followed by, okay, not really feeling this, and I'm ready to move on. And usually that comes with negativity, and that can really affect an organization.
Mhm. Well, I think, you know, all of us, like as a manager and somebody who's hired a lot of people and worked with a lot of different people over the years, you know, we've all had situations where, you know, we made errors, right? Where it looked positive to begin with. And then for whatever reason, you know, it wasn't. And you know, was there an example where they burned brightly and then, you know, the flame, you know, kind of went out, or, you know, maybe was redirected? I've had some of those. But I think what I resonate with a little bit on what you said there more readily is the idea of kind of the hollow positivity. And I've totally seen that, where because I also have sat in the chair where I have lots of suppliers and service providers, you know, coming through the door.
The best product ever. I just got here a week ago. I was somewhere else the week before that, and I told you that was the best product ever.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, and with that, I mean, I do look at that and I go, well, you know, they're very convincing in terms of their enthusiasm at the moment, but it's, you know, it's rings hollow for whatever reason.
Sure.
And yeah, so I've definitely had those experiences. And then when you wait and see, because I'm a big fan of wait and see.
Right.
Just you know, next thing you know, that person's on to somewhere else.
Right.
And then you're just kind of like, oh, okay. And that's why, by the way, I am patient with the people that I get to do business with, because I know that it takes them time as well to accept me when I've changed roles.
Sure.
Because they want to make sure that, you know, whatever I'm doing is going to stick.
Sure.
You can only go so far on the culture of personality.
Yeah.
I think too, Nancy, on the positivity side of things, people have the tendency when they change roles to go, especially with people they're comfortable with, and they dump on the previous company and how awful it was. And to me as a leader, I hear that and I think, well, that's going to be me someday.
Right. What are they going to say about you when they leave?
Yeah. And I feel like that's something that is sometimes hard to overcome. Sometimes you just, you know, you're friendly with somebody and you want to dish the dirt. You know, you're upset. But I feel like you need to hang on. Every experience in life has some sort of positivity that leads you to the next one. And your positive experience can be born out of something negative that happened to you.
Mm-hmm.
So you might have had a job that wasn't the best fit for you, but you're here now in the new position because you learned that that other position wasn't good. And I think that's the best way for people to handle that. Not necessarily. Do you get people? I'm sure you do in your position where they were one place yesterday and they tell you all of the horrible things about that company that you still do business with today.
You know what? I really try not to have those conversations. So, you know, I believe that we distinguish ourselves, that, you know, everything, unless something's distinguished. And I was just sharing this, you know, with some of the ladies at ACW last week, that nothing's powerful unless it's distinguished. And as individuals, we distinguish ourselves through our conversations. So there's only so much time in the day. There's only so much energy to be had. And so I prefer to have positive conversations, productive at least. Now, there's certainly discussions that need to be had in certain scenarios where you're looking to improve something. But for the most part, if I've got somebody who wants to, complain or condemn, those 3 C's, criticize, condemn, and complain. And I don't find those as powerful distinguishing conversations. Okay. So I try to, and I have a choice once again, if I want to participate in those conversations or not.
Right.
So, I generally will try to, let those go. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I've been taught tools, when somebody's complaining about something, I might just say, you could be right.
Yeah. So I have a quick question. So being that we talked about all the 4 P's here.
And the 3 C's.
And the 3 C's.
In for a bonus.
Bonus there. Through your years, what do you see people struggle with the most out of the 4 P's? And what can they do to be better?
Everybody's different. I think, I don't know how you feel about it, Bruce, but I see, and also there are times, the times in their life can dictate different struggles,
Sure.
and I think that those, as humans, I think that we all struggle with one of those 3 P's at different points in our lives, depending on the circumstances.
Yeah.
And so I don't know that anyone is more, stands out more than the other. Although I'm fortunate enough to hang out with a lot of really cool, passionate people. I'm attracted to passionate people.
Energy. Yeah. It's
good energy.
Yes. Yeah. So I guess there's, a lot of folks out there that are dull, but, I don't hang out with them. And maybe, like, to me, that would be the hardest thing to struggle with. If I can't get up in the morning and just be like, yay, God, life is good. And, that's a sad situation.
Have you ever, and I'm sure, because this is all part of the Alliance of Channel Women, and what you do is, we talked last show with Ken Mercer. He talked a lot about mentorship and taking somebody as a protege, whether that person works for you or just taking leadership with somebody that you can grow. Have you had an experience like that, or 2 or 3 or 4, where you just see somebody, that they have all of the intangibles to get them where they need to go, and you just take a liking and you work hard to get that person to their success destination?
Oh yeah, that I think honestly is a huge chunk of my purpose, to be honest. When I look at what is my purpose as an individual, what I have boiled that down to, and I try to take a word once a year and focus on a particular word. And it's so funny when you do that, it appears for you everywhere, right?
Right. Yeah.
And purpose was my word in 2019. And, so I was looking at that word a lot. And for me, what it boiled down to was being of maximum service to my God and to people around me.
I love it.
That's my purpose. And Mayka's a great example. I met her in 2019 through you, Bruce. You said, I want you to meet this woman that, we brought on board here, and I think she's really amazing. And will you, take her under your wing? And I was like, I'll do what I can, And so, we met in Philadelphia, fittingly enough, at the Channel Partners show at the Alliance of Channel Women event. That's the first time I met you, Mayka. And we got to sit down together, and she told me a little bit about herself, and, and then we walked into the room, and I introduced her to everybody that, that walked along. She was just like right there beside me, and she met everybody. And
that was your little glue.
Yeah. And I was like,
I didn't know anyone.
And I was like, you should get on the committee like right now for events. And here are the ladies who are chairing it now. And now she's a board member.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
So
all the advice that you've given me, and you, Michelle, you know, the ladies of ACW, I would give a big, big hug to. I wish we could, but
Hillary was there that night too.
I know. And look at me, you know, Bruce promoted me. I'm on the board for ACW, on the board of channel partners, on, you know, with exposure, the ACC committee. There's so many things that have happened based off your mentorship and leadership. So I thank you, Nancy. You're awesome. You're phenomenal.
It's my heart's delight. And, you know, honestly, you know, I go back to like in one of my first leadership roles, I recruited, so I needed someone to come on board. It was when I first became an agent partner, the company I was working for. And we were doing cost containment consulting. And I was introduced to the channel. And I got into the channel, and I needed to bring somebody in to support me and to take care of agents and partners. And I recruited a young woman who was working for Quest at the time. And she came over, and she didn't know anything about the channel. And she has since become like she's had a lifelong successful career as an independent agent. She ultimately, you know, left this company and became an independent agent for herself. And that's just, you know, that's just another, you know, example going way back. But
it's the stories like that that make you feel like what you're doing every day is what you need to be doing, helping one.
Yeah, and I gotta be honest, you know, like I want big number sales. That's what I want every day, all the time. You know, my DNA is sales. And, you know, so I want sales all the time. And I have to remember that sometimes that, you know, today that wasn't my purpose. Today I got to be a mentor.
I love it.
Yeah, I probably there's some mix. I'm jazzed by sales, and obviously it keeps me employed, but I like to keep track of my coaching tree and to see where people have gone and developed. And to me, that's my scorecard. And, you know, that's where I define my career. So, I think it's so important. Both are important. You know, the revenue generation, is important, but the other stuff, they all tie in together. And when you do that as a leader, especially, those people that you help, they'll find a way to come back and help you. That's the Zig Ziglar principle. So tying it all in a bow. And Nancy, thank you so much, because we've kept you for quite a while, and I don't want to keep you very much longer. But tell us about Ridge Innovative and what you're doing with that company. It's been a couple of years now. I can't believe it. So tell us some of the things that you've done, and give us a little bit about what's in your future.
Awesome. Thank you. And by the way, I really appreciate the opportunity to come and have this conversation with the two of you. And I hope that it has inspired somebody today. And for Ridge Innovative, you know, I am very enthusiastic about that, and where I've just been kind of obsessed in a way is with ecosystems. And, you know, I've always looked at the channel in a way as being an ecosystem. And now that it's become a real thing in terms of technology and in terms of business strategy, it's even more fun. So I've been really working to educate myself on all the various software tools and strategies, business strategies, for actually developing and building ecosystems to help companies grow and achieve results, and really utilize the alliances and the partnerships that they have. And that doesn't just go for, you know, certainly, you know, in the channel, although Ridge Innovative is working to help organizations with their channel programs. So I am engaged in that on a professional level. I have been doing some one-on-one coaching, and I'm continuing to expand that part of my business, working with sales leaders. And so that's one element of Ridge Innovative that I love, and that is very near and dear to my heart and continues to grow. But I also still love the technology. So I've been assembling a portfolio of companies that offer these software ecosystem tools and taking those to enterprises to help them. You know, Accenture did a study in 2019, and they basically said ecosystems are the next frontier of digital transformation, and that organizations are going to find that, you know, their business, the number was over 60% of enterprises are believing that their business model will be unrecognizable in 5 years.
Wow.
So, you know, so it is a huge shift, and it's been accelerated by the pandemic. So more than ever now, we do need each other, and we need to get there faster. So I'm very much in the space of consulting. And of course, we need all of the great tools that Telesystem offers, you know, whether it's security solutions, bandwidth, SD-WAN, you name it, you know, UCaaS, CCaaS. You've got to have that underlying foundation, first of all, in place. If you're an organization that's going to survive and thrive. And then on top of that, you know, layering on these additional strategies and software tools to help you expand your alliances. So you could get me talking about this for a while.
Yeah,
where can we find you?
Yeah.
Can we find you on LinkedIn? Can we find you on
LinkedIn? Absolutely. Please follow me there, because I'm always trying to, I have a podcast called Culture of Innovation.
Okay, check it out. Where is it? On Apple iTunes?
It's on iTunes and it's on SoundCloud, and you can also find it on www.ridgeinnovative.com, Culture of Innovation. And there I'm interviewing leaders who are really out there innovating in a lot of different ways. And this week's topic, by the way, is trust as a platform for innovation. So I know you relate to that one.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that leads into everything else that we talked about. You could keep building that pyramid and show the lines and arrows, and there's a lot of things that tie together. Awesome.
Absolutely. So.
Well, yeah, we are so happy to have you with us today, Nancy, and everybody's got to make sure to check out Nancy's podcast as well. I didn't know that, so I'm behind the times. I need to add it to my. I use Stitcher, so I'll add it to my Stitcher favorites. So,
well, you know, I might have to return the favor and have you come and be a guest on the podcast in 2021.
I'd love it. I'd love it. Nancy, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today. Best of luck in your endeavors with Ridge Innovative. I'm excited to see the continued growth. And, you know, this isn't a Telesystem commercial, but we're excited to keep working with you and building success together.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Back on the other side right after you watch this Telesystem commercial.
In a world where businesses are striving to adapt, connect, and evolve, we're here to bring you more. More freedom to work how and where you want while keeping employees connected, productive, and engaged. More flexibility to customize solutions to tailor a simple, more agile network. And more security for an evolving cyber landscape with around-the-clock access to hands-on technical support. It's time to explore more.
All right, back here at Next Generation Leadership. Mayka, what an awesome chat with Nancy Ridge. We probably could have talked for like 3 hours, but you know, these podcasts try to keep them to an hour. So I
know it was so good. So much substance to the conversation. I always love chatting with Nancy. Yeah. I hope that whoever listened got a few little pointers that they can take with them.
One of my favorite people in the industry. And she's helped my wife a lot too. My wife was in the channel. Maybe she'll be in the channel again someday too. Right now she's focused on just being a mom. And so, yeah, but
the best job in the world.
Yeah, the hardest job in the world.
It is.
I'm glad that I'm not, I don't have to balance what she does. You know, she's up at like 5:45, handling breakfast, you know, dealing with messy oatmeal. And there I am rolling out of bed at like 7:45, trying to get to my first meeting in the basement. What do we got coming up next, Nancy? What do we got coming up next, Mayka, for all the people that follow us. And but thank you so much. We had a rave reviews for the first episode. Lots more people than we expected joined. So I'm looking at my microphone. I should be looking at the camera. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you so much.
If you're watching on YouTube. All right. So what do we got coming up next?
So we have Tina Gravel from Appgate, who is the SVP and Global Channel of Alliance executive there. She is a author. She is a renowned public speaker. She is awesome. And I can't wait until we get her on the seat and start talking.
She's got so much energy. You talk about passion. I remember there was an event, Tech Connect, and it was put on by the Alliance partners, and she presented, and I think she won the award for the best presentation at that event. Just a dynamic speaker. She's very fun, and I'm looking forward to chatting with her.
She has multiple awards too, so she's a big powerhouse.
She's a powerhouse. You'll get to go inside of her mind next time we get together, which is about 2 weeks. We try to give you this about 2 weeks, every 2 weeks. So not on a consistent day. Just make sure you subscribe and you'll get them when you get them, okay?
See you soon.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Next Generation Leadership. Nancy Ridge was a fantastic guest, and we'll come at you next time. I hope you learned something, and I hope you get to grow from it, because that's why we're here. For Mayka Rosales Peterson, I'm Bruce Wirt, and we'll talk to you next time.